why don't we, the left, have cringe YouTube channels dedicated to just putting up random clips like this one, Conservative Clip Centre. Wow, I mean, it's beautiful. Look at that beautiful logo. Like, wow. And anyway, what I would have loved to do, and I will do at some point, is start watching Question Time in full and just sort of going through it all. But it'll be a big one. I mean, Question Time on its own is like an hour long, and then with me interjecting and stuff like that, take forever. I need to be a stream really. So I'm not going to do one of those yet. But Jordan Peterson was on Question Time not too long ago, just back in November, and I kind of want to do something on Jordan Peterson because, for me, Jordan Peterson is just one of those people, along with like Ayn Rand and stuff like that, where if someone sort of says that sort of intellectually they agree with them or they're in any way an influence on them, I just kind of make the assumption you're probably a wanker then. You're probably a massive dickhead and we're not going to get on. This is a perfect example of this. So the title of this is Jordan Peterson educates entire Question Time panel on racism. Abstracting the problem does no good. I'm guessing that's a quote he does. In the description, the Conservative Clip Centre. So some people say like Jordan Peterson's not a conservative. Conservatives seem to agree with them, and as do a lot of white supremacists. Weird that. Jordan Peterson battles multiple panel members on institutional racism, including Labour and the SNP. The psychologist argues that abstracting the problem rather than tackling the specific instances does harm rather than good. Well, we'll have to see if he actually explains himself, but my prediction is Jordan Peterson will say absolutely nothing. He'll put words together, but there'll be absolutely no substance behind those words. Let's just watch it and see. Let's see what level of education Jordan Peterson provides, eh? Of course. Fucking, why is Margaret Thatcher the most like high quality image there? Fucking hell.
Let's take another question from Julian. Julian Lee.
With the revelations from cricket's Azim Rafiq and footballers still taking the knee, what does this say about racism as a continuing undercurrent in present-day Britain?
So what he's referring to here is a cricketer, Azim Rafiq, who came forward about racism he suffered in Yorkshire County Cricket Club, and what was on top of that is not only did he make a complaint to the cricket club, but then nothing was done with it, so no one was punished for it. Seemingly nothing happened, so Yorkshire Cricket Club can be seen as like being quite complicit in that, of at least not doing anything to act on racism. And Azim Rafiq then promptly became the target of more racism as people started being racist to him in order to suggest to him that Britain's not racist. And it's probably just him being an attention-seeking slur word, probably. I imagine that's roughly how it went.
Nazir.
The brown person will answer first.
Yeah.
No disrespect.
Nazir, so do you think that was wrong of me to come to you first?
I think so. I think.
Well, let's not do it then, Jordan. I don't mean that. I'm not being.
I have an old issue with BBC and Fiona Bruce hosting this. It's gone in completely the wrong direction. Question Time. It's very handily in the position now of just being a tool for the BBC to become a propaganda wing of the Tory party, which is not what the public broadcaster is supposed to be. Now, I know there's people who always make this criticism either way. People on the right will say BBC is still really left-wing. I mean, I don't know what evidence they have for that, considering the only left-wing candidate we've ever had stand for election over the last 10 years got absolutely destroyed by the BBC. They even put a picture of him in a Kremlin hat. But yeah, apparently right-wing think they're too left-wing, and the left will obviously attack them for being very pro-Tory. And some people will say, well, this is probably it's actually probably centrist. But I don't think you can say that and then argue that they put on the kid's glove when they're dealing with a Tory controversy, and they're very unwilling to go into detail about it. And then you have cases like this where it always seems the anti-woke kind of thing is taking over the narrative, really, for BBC, where rather than actually deal with a point that's just been raised there by another politician, she's just going to quickly move on and pretend like nothing happened. And that actually, no criticism here, nothing to talk about more. Let's just move on and ignore it.
Being sarcastic at all. I mean, if that's how you feel, I respect that. Let's go to Jordan. Well, that's a fair point. I'll come to Jordan.
I think the same point I made earlier applies, is that things need to be particularized rather than generalized, as a general rule, let's say. And so this cricket player was facing racism, by his own account. The question is, who, when, what, exactly? Because otherwise it degenerates into something like a discussion of structural racism. And when it becomes abstracted up to that level, first of all, that pits group against group, which I think is entirely counterproductive. And it actually doesn't address the issue. You know, racism is a global and vague term.
Sorry, but what...
Why do you...
I know he's about to be challenged on it based on what was just being said there, but yeah, I mean, you knew what he was trying to kind of get at. Once again, he said absolutely nothing there. He said nothing of substance whatsoever. But that was basically a long way of saying, well, I don't think racism is real. And if you're claiming that you're a victim of racism, then maybe you should have done something about it yourself rather than suggest that it was a problem with other people. But that's fucking stupid. He started there by basically saying, oh, well, he claims he was a racist victim, but like, who did it? What was said? Where did it happen? You know, as if it was like a fictionalized tale, and he was basically saying, well, we need to actually investigate whether it's real first. But the problem is, he knows very, very little about cricket, I imagine, and he knows nothing about this case, clearly. These are all things that he's already come forward with, Azim Rafiq, and it's already answered. So that's a non-criticism, first of all. We have all that information. We also know they attempted to deal with it, and then nothing was done on behalf of the player from the cricket club whose jurisdiction it was. So if you have an institution doing nothing about the racism happening within it, then yeah, you can call that institutionalised racism. That's the very definition. He doesn't want to talk about it because he knows that means he has to deal with other issues that he's previously pretended are not a problem.
Why would you possibly do that? What did that mean?
Because I said it was a global and vague term.
The inverted commas as if it's not a real thing.
No, that isn't what it meant.
Well, what did it mean?
It meant that it's indicative of low-resolution thinking.
Once again, what does that mean?
We use all these terms frequently in discussions like this that are
He was
containers of undifferentiated content.
He was repeatedly called abusive terms.
This is low resolution thinking, containers of what do you call it? I gotta rewind.
Containers of undifferentiated content.
So low resolution thinking and containing of. Go on, hang on.
He was
containers of undifferentiated content.
He was repeatedly called abusive.
Containers of undifferentiated content and low resolution thinking. What does that mean? What does that mean? That's just... They're not even buzzwords because no one else knows what they mean other than him. They're literally just... It's just his attempt to sound smart when he actually doesn't have a clue what he's talking about. This is why I laugh to myself whenever someone actually says, oh, John Peterson's good. Why? Like... For me, it's just like, you know, you see people who like claim to like all these art house films, but like if you ever have a conversation with them, they can't really tell you about much that happens in it or much of the quality in it because they just know they're supposed to like it and they're supposed to find it like thought-provoking or something like that. I mean, you probably won't see someone like this ever since you were a student, really, if you were a student, but most people probably won't see many people like this, but I have. But that's what this reminds me of, where he just knows he needs to put in big words and substance not important, and people just buy it. And the people who are his fan base, naturally, are just listening to the big words and going, oh, Jordan Peterson just owned them. But he's not said anything so far. He said bugger all. He's just been wrong so far.
Abusive terms directly linked to his ethnicity.
By who?
By not just one, but repeated members of the Yorkshire Cricket Club. He's
Okay,
had people
well,
contact him.
then
If it
they-
walks like a duck, Jordan,
Then they
talks
should-
like a
no,
duck.
I'm not
It's
denying-
a duck. It's racism.
I'm not
Yeah.
denying his
Well,
experience.
no applause there.
Right.
What I asked was exactly who and when, and you just answered that
Yes.
question. So I would say those specific.
So, so he's got in and he's gone, well, racism's not real. If he was a victim of racism, then what happened? Where did it happen? Who did it? What was said? Because he's looking for an out to say, well, that's just their perspective that they were a victim of racism. It's not the case. This person has come forward and said, no, that's bullshit. Here's why. And now he's about to back out and then make another stupid non-point.
People should be held specifically to account for their actions before any movement
And they
up
weren't.
the abstraction hierarchy to a discussion of something like structural racism.
But they weren't held accountable. That's the point, Jordan. Fucking hell. He put the complaint forward to the cricket club. Cricket club did bugger all about it. He has now taken it further because the institution did nothing. So those people specifically were not held to account. I don't know why this is hard for you to follow, but it's because he doesn't care. He just cares about minimising this idea of racism. As long as people don't talk about racism, he gets off scot-free because he gets to continue to suggest that the real victim society is the white Christian men who follow him.
Which I don't think is helpful.
Well, he has talked about institutional racism in cricket. He says that's what he's experienced as a term, institutional racism.
Right, I know. And like I said, I believe that abstracting up the problem to that level of analysis does no good.
Why
because
doesn't it do no
pits
good?
groups against groups. I think
What groups? What, pro-racism versus anti-racism? That's like the only two groups involved here, surely. Why? He's not explaining why going to the institutional level is a bad thing. He's not doing that because he has no reason to say that. He has nothing to actually make argument-wise there. His argument is always very much, I'd rather we not talk about racism, please.
it exacerbates the problem. The concept of structural racism.
Now that's...
Groups against groups. I think it exacerbates the problem. The concept of structural.
That's the face. That's the face that everyone should have. Listen to Jordan Peterson. Just, what the fuck is this nonsense? Why do people buy this? Well, people do buy it, and it's really fucking sad, isn't it? The level of idiot in the world who listens to Jordan Peterson and think, oh, that's a man of substance. No, bugger off.
Structural racism. It's too imprecise. It doesn't address the issue. Now, that doesn't mean that does not
But the
mean
issues-
racism does not exist. That is not what I'm saying in the least.
Maybe let's do less of the hand movements and
I
let's look
did
at the
it once,
evidence.
so yes,
that there
I'll
was.
try
So
to
the evidence
control it in
was
the future.
about the experience that Azim had, about multiple accounts. I think when we talk about structural racism, one of the things that really occurs to me, if I think about it in laymen and women's terms, is the bystander effect. And what is so powerful about his testimony is not just the explicit racism that he faced, it's the numbers of people who stood by and basically normalised that behaviour. And all of us have a challenge to ask ourselves whether we are normalising forms of racism. And actually, I think that's what Nazir called you to account to about Fiona tonight, was to say we normalise the idea. If we're going to talk about racism, we go to the
He
person
looks
of
so
colour
fed
first,
up.
and
Well,
ask them
actually,
to give
can
us
I
their
just
hot
say,
take.
in my defence, I also tried to get everyone on the panel first as well, to make sure so that everyone has a go at the first
don't
question.
think
But
it's
when
fair
we
to
talk
say
about-
that what you did was racist. I don't believe that.
But we're
Well, I don't give a fuck, John. Yeah, so, hang on. Jordan Peterson educates entire Christian panel on racism. Except he didn't, because he didn't say anything. He said nothing of substance, and as far as I can tell, he started off with a wild claim that basically was trying to gear this discussion towards racism being made up, and then he was quickly challenged, and he backed out of it. And then he said some more bollocks, and everyone just sort of went, what the fuck are you talking about? And then they moved past him. That's what happened. So, Conservative Clip Centre, you probably should pick your clips a little better. You should probably pick a clip where he actually looks like he's doing anything of note, rather than actually being jobbed out on Question Time. But yeah, fucking stupid. If you are a young person who has at some point been taken in by Jordan Peterson, please take this as your cue to not do that anymore, please. He's a fucking idiot. Really fucking is.